Aloha and welcome to Goddess Unleashed. Today, I'm very excited to interview my guest. She was actually brought to me by Dom, one of the fellow authors in the book that I'm in, Crappy to Happy. And she pronounces her name so fancy, Brigitte Mars. She is an author, professor, and a plant expert. And on my journey, I've had a lot of experience using herbs to help me actually heal my body. So I'm excited to learn from someone that is actually an expert on herbs and plants and how we can use these to help heal our bodies. Our topic today is immunity and also sexual health. So make sure you stay tuned to both parts of the episode because on the beginning, we're talking about immunity, but on the second half, we're talking about the really spicy stuff, sexual health. Brigitte, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, indeed. I've been working with plant medicine for over 50 years. My French-Canadian grandmother used plant medicine. And at an early age, I just thought that is so cool that you could heal a little wounded animal or a sick child with stuff in your kitchen like garlic or onions or cabbage. Yeah. And I just, my parents would always say, those are old wives' tales. And I said, yeah, and they work too. So I love the idea. By the time I was 17, I was managing a natural foods restaurant in St. Croix in the Virgin Islands. And I had a vegetarian restaurant in Miami, but I've always been focused on how to help people with nature because it makes sense. It's good for the planet to have all these wonderful plants growing. And I feel that herbs have been used by millions of people for thousands of years. And I'm putting my faith in things that are made in nature more than that made in the laboratory.
I think it's beautiful that you've been in this path for such a long time because it really, as a nurse, it really was hard for me to assimilate that I needed to use more herbs and go back to my roots and nature to heal the body. And I found it a very slow process. It took me 8 years to, get over my autoimmune disease, to heal my body, to work on the emotional triggers and the trauma behind it. But really what we need to do is focus on what we feed our bodies and make sure we're giving ourselves the right herbs, especially at this time that everyone's feeling extra stress. So I was so excited to bring you on for this global series because I think we're going to make a big impact.
Super.
You have many amazing books. I was taking a look at your website and digging into how many variety of books that you've talked about. And I know we're going to focus today on immunity and sexual health. Tell us a little bit about your insights on how we can use herbs, essential oils, and natural products to help us boost our immune system.
Well, the immune topic is a really big one right now. And if you just listen to the media, you would think, and I hope that you're not, you would think that the only way to be healthy is sanitize your hands, wear a mask, and stay indoors. And maybe that's what people need to do to prevent them from getting a virus. But we also need to look at what about building immunity? How can we be resistant? Because eventually we're going to get exposed, if not to this virus, to other viruses. So, and how do we take care of ourselves when we're sick? So, I find it kind of interesting that all of a sudden people are thinking about their immunity, but really we should be thinking about it all the time. And our immune system is not just one set of organs. It's our entire body. It's our skin. It's our cells. It's our digestive system. And so, we really want to focus on having a healthy terrain. And so I know right now the focus is on, sterilize everything. But Louis Pasteur on his deathbed really proclaimed the terrain is everything because we're all going to be exposed to different viruses and some people are going to get very sick and some people are going to recover quickly. And so today I want to share some ideas on what we can do so that we can recover if we do get sick, if not from what's going around now, what's coming around later. So, I really like the idea that everything we put in our mouth can either be undermining our health or building our health. So what are the things that undermine our health? Fried foods, chips, refined products like, white bread and white rice and white cornmeal, sugar, junk food, things with preservatives and artificial colors. I mean, all of those things undermine our health. So I'm really an advocate for how can we eat in a way to support our immunity. So I certainly am going to think of eating a wide variety of fresh fruits and vegetables, colorful, the more colorful, the better. So if you're shopping and you have a choice between, you know, a white potato or a sweet potato, I'm going to pick the sweet potato. If you have a choice between a white peach or a really awesome pink peach or a yellow watermelon or a red watermelon, I'm going to always go for the color, because the color indicates that there's different phytonutrients present in the food. And that means different chemicals like lycopene, which can help protect us from men, especially from prostate cancer. Or we could look at things like anthocyanins, which give berries, very often they're blue and purple colors. So eat a wide variety of colors. And so rather than having a beige meal, you know, like rice and potatoes and some kind of meat and some kind of fried thing, you know, I'm looking at like green kale and purple cabbage and dark green beets and black beans. And, you know, the more colorful, the better. It's not to say that white color foods don't have some immune boosting things, like onions and garlic are certainly great to add to our repertoire. But we could start spicing our food up, because all of the culinary herbs, things like garlic and oregano and cayenne and ginger, basil, thyme, those all have antimicrobial properties. And throughout history, not only were those spices used to flavor our food, but they were also used to slow down microbial growth to preserve the food. But now we can use them in our bodies to deactivate pathogens like viruses, bacteria, and even fungi, or funguses, but plural is fungi. So it's really easy to think about, you know, if we're sick, how can we make our food healing? So for example, you know, with all of this going around right now, I feel like a really great thing is, you know, a baked sweet potato or baked winter squash with those dark orange vegetables. And then you put a lot of garlic on it, because garlic is antimicrobial, it's bronchodilating. So it's going to be great for coughs. You know, cayenne pepper, used around the world for spicing up our food, but that's another great one. Thyme, you know, put some thyme in your soup. Thyme is so antimicrobial. It's one of the traditional ingredients in Listerine, guaranteed to fight germs. Oregano is another good one. Cinnamon. So, you know, those are just a few things, but we're also undermining our health. For example, if you're sick and you think that eating ice cream or drinking a milkshake is going to be a good thing, you're wrong, because dairy products create a lot of phlegm. So if you're sick and you're coughing and blowing your nose and you've got phlegm coming out of every orifice, the last thing you want is something to create more phlegm. Milk, cheese, ice cream, give it up. If not forever, at least for the time while you're sick, because they will just create more phlegm and then you'll just be coughing, coughing, coughing. So that's a simple thing. And for those of you who think you need dairy, you know, just know that if you start shopping at a natural food store, you're going to find that there's all kinds of alternatives. There's nut milks, there's oat milks. We make hazelnut milk here at our house every morning to put in our yerba mate. And, you know, in general, just getting off of allergenic foods, lots of wheat and bread and pasta. So this is a time for really high quality, nutritionally dense, immune supporting foods. And I also want to just put in a plug for eating some fermented foods, things like unpasteurized sauerkraut or kimchi. I think a lot of us feel intuitively that when we're getting sick, we should go out for really spicy Thai food, you know, the number 3 spicy Thai food, or even things with a lot of salsas. The garlic and the onions and the tomatoes and the cilantro and the parsley are all going to be allies, the chili peppers. And then getting off of allergens would also be a good idea. So if we're, you know, eating junk food while we're sick, well, expect to be sick. So we have some control of our health. It's not really our doctor's responsibility to make us well. We need to, you know, learn about it now. And if you're a parent, then you really need to learn how to take care of your children and not only listen to the drug ads on TV, which tend to suppress illness. They don't really bring you total health. I work in a pharmacy and I see a lot of pharmaceutical drugs, taken off the market. So again, I like to say that what I do is traditional medicine, because if you go back at the turn of the 1900s, most of the drugs back then were made out of plants. And then, the pharmaceutical companies thought that they could just synthesize or remove one alkaloid and turn it into a drug. But again, I'm sticking with what nature has provided.
I love that you started talking about the foods that we should avoid, because that's one of the essential components of what I teach, is that these foods are very harmful. They cause a lot of inflammation. And at this point that we have this big fear of this virus, we want to tackle that head on so that we can create a safe environment inside our bodies and advocate for our bodies, but also the bodies of our children and our families. So thank you for sharing that. And the dairy thing with the phlegm is such a huge one. As a nurse, I remember bedside dealing with babies and kids, and how the parents are so frustrated about all the phlegm and the congestion. And when we would tell them to avoid milk for a couple of days, it was like they just couldn't do that. But their kid would be okay. Your kid will be fine if you avoid milk for a couple of days and just make sure you're hydrating them and get that congestion out of the body, as opposed to making it worse.
Well, the milk products seem, when we're talking about children, a lot of kids that get chronic ear infections, chronic sinus infections, chronic coughs, they always have runny noses, and even things like asthma, getting off of dairy might be a remedy that really takes care of it. And it doesn't cost anything to give that a try. And it's really not hard to learn to make hazelnut milk or sesame milk. And again, there's probably 20 varieties of dairy-free milks that you can buy at the store now, but it does save you money to learn to make it yourself. And so we have to realize that we are being marketed sickness. If you watch an hour of TV, what you see is eat this junk food and then take these drugs. Eat this junk food, take these drugs. And people think like that's normal. And why should we trust that? Like the ads for the junk food are why we need the drugs.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I started in that lifestyle, that eating junk food, that stuck on prescriptions. I was taking more than 13 when I started this journey. And it feels so much better when your body is functioning properly, when you don't need these medications to just keep covering things up and causing more side effects. When you're clean, you feel so different. And it really does boost your immune system. It really helps you heal. It calms your nerves if you're anxious. It has so many benefits. So I'm glad that I brought you on. I actually wanted to talk about a couple herbs that I used when I was starting off, my journey into more of a healing path. I started off using turmeric, ashwagandha, bacoba, milk thistle, green tea, and aloe. And those were really the crucial elements for me to reduce the inflammation and shut off that autoimmune response that was happening in my body that I had been stuck in all my life since I was a teenager, a little girl actually. Can you let us know a little bit about how these herbs help reduce that inflammation and stress in the body and support the immune system?
Yes. I just wanted to say two more things about good things to eat when you're sick first, before I forget. Applesauce with cinnamon, because cinnamon's antimicrobial. Miso soup would be another thing. So, turmeric is in the same family as ginger, and a lot of herbs are anti-inflammatory. They improve circulation. We know that turmeric has a compound in it called curcumin, which is anti-inflammatory. Ginger, very close relative, has the similar properties. I could do a whole show on each one of those herbs, but I remember you said aloe vera. Aloe vera is very soothing, and it contains something called biogenic stimulators, which actually helps to repair irritated tissue. It could be like in the esophagus or in the colon or in the stomach. It's one of my favorite remedies for ulcers. And so that's one that you generally drink as a juice. Bacopa, I tend to use that for memory and seizures and dementia. I don't remember all the herbs that you said. Ashwagandha is a great tonic for the adrenal glands. But, you know, everyone's going to have their own herbs, and there's thousands and thousands of them. And I've written a whole book called The Desktop Guide to Herbal Medicine. So I like to really not even just use the herbs as a Band-Aid. I want to get to the source of it. And I think it's also important to look at that inflammation in the body could be due to eating things we're allergic to. And it's often what we crave. So a person might say, oh, I just love peanut butter. I just love pizza. And they eat that. But it may be that eating pizza is that maybe they are sensitive to dairy and gluten, which is in the wheat. And so they eat it, and they actually activate an immune response. So your white blood cells start, you know, getting in there and trying to deactivate it. But I think we also feel a little bit comforted because we've activated our immune system. So it's very easy for people to get addicted to what they're allergic to. And if we keep eating those things, it can result in constant inflammation and autoimmune disorders where the body's actually attacking itself. It's turned on itself because it's trying to trying to actively negate the dairy, the wheat, the peanut butter, the eggs, the soy, the corn, or whatever the allergy might be.
I love that you brought that up because I actually had that on here. So I started my journey as a child with a lot of food allergies. I had a lot of plant allergies. I would go out in nature and get all these rashes, and my parents were just overwhelmed. And it progressed into autoimmune disease, but it all started as a little girl.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, another thing that weakens our immune system is the overuse of antibiotics. And I'm sure as a nurse, I mean, we know that antibiotics can save lives, but when we take them for every little thing and they don't work for colds and flus. And we have to remember that if you're eating commercial meat, dairy, and eggs, you are getting antibiotics in your food because in the commercial agricultural farming business of raising animals, the animals are fed, if they're commercial, not if they're organic or grass fed, but they give them antibiotics all the time, whether they're sick or not, because they're in such close quarters, they're trying to prevent herd disease. And so even though you might think, well, I don't take antibiotics, if you're eating commercial eggs and dairy, you are, because it's in the feed. And so that can kill the good and bad bacteria. And all of a sudden, we're not tolerating things like pollen or, cat dander or things that we really should be able to be all right with. Even removing our tonsils can have a weakening effect on our immune system. Granted, there's cases where that needs to be done, but in the 50s when I was born, it was done almost routinely, whether you needed your tonsils removed or not. And yet those big swollen tonsils were actually full of white blood cells trying to deactivate something that you're probably ingesting or breathing in.
Yeah, that's so true. It was more prevalent to have those surgeries. Both my kids had them removed because they were chronically ill all the time. And really, a lot of it, I'm sure, stemmed from me because I had all of this inflammation and I breastfed them, even though it's great to breastfeed. I feel like some of that, those allergies and those inflammatory effects got through to them. So their first few years were a little bit tough. But we changed when I switched my lifestyle to really use vitamins that are made from dehydrated fruits and vegetables, giving them more natural products. And we went away from having to use the prescriptions all that time.
Super, great.
I know you know a lot about supplements and herbs that people can use. What vitamins do you think support a healthy immune system that maybe people could take now?
Well, I have a lot of friends who say, I have to go back and get tested for COVID again. And it's like, well, why just wait? Why don't you just start taking some supplements so that if you get tested, you're not going to get sick? And so, we're hearing a lot in the media about vitamin C. That's easy to do. And don't just count on orange juice. Most orange juice has way too much sugar in it. It's pasteurized. Better to eat a fresh orange. Certainly vitamin D, which we're going to get from sunshine. So I do hope that you're spending people some time out in the sun when you can be away from others without your mask, because I really do think getting sunlight on your entire body is a good thing. We're also hearing about things like zinc lozenges. When you suck on zinc, it will inhibit the replication of cold and flu virus. But, really all the vitamins, beta carotene, can help make our lungs and our skin more resistant to infection. I think a good probiotic is always a good idea to help our bodies have the friendly bacteria that can help inactivate unfriendly microorganisms. But vitamins, for me, at first it's food. First it's like attitude, then food, then herbs, then vitamins. And I use all of them. And then there's drugs and there's surgery. But very often we start out with drugs and surgery when there might have been, 3 or 4 or 5 steps we could do to activate our own immune health. And we just need to be educated. And that's why it's so great that you're doing a show to educate others on what they can do, because unfortunately, a lot of doctors don't even know to tell you about the vitamins or the herbs or the food. That's not what they're really learning in medical school. They have their own specialties, and for that, we're grateful.
Oh, absolutely. I think you need to be the advocate for yourself and look for alternatives. And sometimes you may be stuck in that mindset where surgery is the option, antibiotics or prescriptions, but you can merge into a more balanced option, which is what I figured out on my journey, because I started with tons of surgeries too. I get that mindset. I get how people get stuck there, but it's important to look outside of that box, especially now that we have this COVID-19 virus and then the flu virus and all these viruses happening at the same time, to really work on building that immune system, healing the body, and focusing on what you can do for yourself as a protection mechanism for your body.
And so there are so many herbs that have been used. Many were even used during the Spanish flu successfully, or even during, other epidemics. Even some of these herbs that I talk about were used during the bubonic plague. I mean, during the bubonic plague, which is a totally different kind of disease, people used garlic and thyme and rosemary and myrrh and frankincense and cloves. But, right now, if you go to the health food store, it's good to have things on hand, because sometimes we start feeling sick in the middle of the night. And the last thing you want to do is go shopping when you're sick and you're already out of sorts. So to already have some things in your cupboard. So elderberry was used during the Spanish flu, elderberry syrup, elder flower is really good for fever. But I also want to say that fever means the body's heating up to try to destroy pathogens. And this pursuit that you've got a little fever, you need to lower it. It really means your body is doing its job, because heat can kill off these pathogens. So for me, if I had a fever, I might actually drink hot tea and try to sweat, or go in a sauna or take a hot bath to sweat more and eliminate toxins through the skin. And there's also the use of herbs that are diaphoretic, that make you sweat, like elderflower, peppermint, yarrow, ginger are all really good ones. But we also have many, many other antimicrobial herbs that you can buy in the health food store. And, don't think you need to reinvent the wheel or mix up some kind of tea that you don't know anything about. You can go to a health food store and look, they're going to have an immune section. They're going to have things like oil of oregano capsules. They're going to have formulas that have herbs from around the world, such as isatis, andrographis, baptisia. Those are very often from Asia. And in the West, we have things like echinacea, osha, golden seal. And, I want to share that my French-Canadian grandmother, she had 11 children, and at one time they all had whooping cough. And she told me that what she did was she put olive oil on the soles of their feet and put chopped garlic on their feet, and then would pull a pair of socks on. The olive oil would keep the garlic from burning your skin. And so the garlic was chopped. Within 5 minutes, the kids would have garlic breath. And garlic is a bronchodilator. And when Albert Schweitzer didn't have stores of penicillin when he was in Africa, he used garlic. And that's something that we really should be stocking up on. There's also a great folk remedy. There's a book written on it called fire cider. And we made fire cider in my class a few weeks ago, but it's basically garlic, ginger, onions, horseradish, apple cider vinegar, and honey, all blended up together. And you feel sick and you take this, and cayenne pepper could be in there too. You take a few spoons of that, and like the pathogens, they're not going to win that. They just aren't. And then there's also the whole possibility that in the sick room that one would diffuse essential oils rather than, just recirculating pathogens. I mean, you could get yourself one of those really cool aromatherapy misters that they have at the health food store. They put humidity in the air, and then you add a few drops of essential oil like lavender or fir or oregano or tea tree. And so the molecules of those antimicrobial plants are now in the air, and that can help prevent the spread of infection to others in the family. I don't know, that would be great in the hospitals if they would do that, to help cut down on the exposure to the healthcare workers as well as to other patients. So think about, that's another thing, that we can actually put something antimicrobial into the air. Like eucalyptus would be another really good one. And that's going to help the person to breathe. You're going to get these antimicrobial compounds down in your lungs. So, it's really not that difficult. And it just takes a little bit of learning or getting a book on, how to do it. And again, it's really time to pay attention if you haven't been doing it already. I sometimes find it a little humorous that, people are wearing their masks while they wait in line to go buy junk food. It's like, come on, wake up. Like the time is now. Like, value your health. And the healthier you are, the better you're going to come through, these pathogens that are not done going around.
I love all those tips. Make sure you guys go out and find some essential oils, go get some herbs in your cabinet, buy some teas, and get prepared and start nurturing your whole family and really staying away from those foods that we talked about that were inflammatory. Stay tuned for the second half. We're going to talk about sexual health in just a bit. Aloha. We're going to start now.
Okay, we did it.
Aloha and welcome back. This is Diane Vic, and I'm so excited about this part of the episode. So we were talking about immunity and how we can boost our immune system now during COVID-19. But on this second half, we're talking about sexual health. And orgasms were a big part of my healing journey. And it has been an integral part of what I teach people of how to heal the body. So I was excited to interview you and learn more about your book, because I know you wrote a book about sexual health. Let us know about that book.
Okay, well, I wrote a book called The Sexual Herbal. This is a reprint of a book that I did 20 years ago, and then Inner Traditions republished it. So this is like a book on holistic gynecology. And there's a lot in it about, how to increase your libido, how to deal with sexual problems like erectile dysfunction or, lack of orgasmic ability, or how to make love with a virgin, or how to make love with someone who's a very different size than you, or healing the spirit from a broken heart, or the fine art of flirting and finding a mate, or feng shui for the bedroom. So I have a lot of ideas in the book. And, I studied Tantra, which means weaving your lives together. So the art of weaving your lives together. I studied Tantra with a number of teachers, Charles and Caroline Muir, Margot Anand, Light and Brian Miller. And I found that, a lot of times these classes, they assume that everybody's in great health and doesn't come to it with a lot of trauma. And the truth is, a lot of us, come into a relationship and we have trauma, and we maybe things aren't functioning right, or we have endometriosis, or intercourse hurts, or our partner, needs to take a drug to get an erection, or they are or we're always tired. So I feel like all of these issues need to be addressed because, sexual energy is extra energy. And I do think that we sometimes are not really looking at the big picture. It's not just an on-off button. Very often, if we're in poor health, if we're exhausted, we're working too hard, we're too stressed, we're all in our heads, it's really hard to, give attention to our lower chakra centers. So I'm really big on that. If you have a partner on the path and it's a treasure and you want this, it's so worth it to keep learning your whole life. And I think sometimes people have a bit of an ego. They think, well, I've been sexually active for 30 years, or I've had 100 lovers, so I know what I'm doing. And yet, I still take herbal classes, I still read books on nutrition. And so if you value relationship, how wonderful to continue to learn and find ways to communicate better and keep sexuality exciting your whole life. And of course, after a while, when you get older, it's more about quality than quantity. And so the idea that we have to measure up to some statistic that we see in a magazine is, really irrelevant. But I find that a lot of times we undermine our sexuality. And just like when we were talking about immunity, if we're exhausted, if we have poor nutrition, if we are on prescription drugs, many drugs can affect libido, everything from cholesterol medication, because cholesterol is needed to make sex hormones. If we're on antidepressants, if we're on antihistamines, those things can all affect our libido. And so we need to realize that sexuality is kind of like, high tide, low tide. There's going to be times where it takes more of a backseat and times when it's more predominant. But we don't get enough education on how can we nourish our reproductive system so that we can be able to enjoy sex our whole life.
That is so true, especially with all the prescriptions and the fact that people are already have so many predispositions, so many conditions that are affecting their immune system, affecting their body, but it also impacts their sexual health. When I started on my journey, I had zero libido. I was in my 20s and already it was dwindling away. By the time I was 30, it was pretty much gone. And my body was under so much inflammation. But once I started to heal the body, they started to come back. And then you begin to feel the benefit of it and how it reduces stress, how it reduces inflammation in your body and creates that bond with your partner. So it's so amazing that we can talk about this topic, because I know as we age, sometimes things get a little bit more difficult, especially with women. Lubrication sometimes is an issue. I know for me, as I've been aging, it's been changing and it hasn't been quite the same. Do you have any suggestions on maybe essential oils that would benefit in that aspect in lubrication?
Well, I would just say use coconut oil. It's not condom friendly, but, hopefully by your, middle years, you found a person that you're monogamous with. That would probably be ideal. But just coconut oil, take the pressure off you. And if men weren't circumcised, they would produce some lubrication. So, but it's a little too late to go back and undo that process that has been put on men for many generations. I don't think that's helping. I think that it's a trauma to do to a young baby, but, have a little thing of coconut oil by the bed. It softens as soon as you put it on your hands. It doesn't stain the sheets. It's edible. So it makes oral sex, possible. It smells nice. It actually inhibits yeast overgrowth. So if a woman is prone to candida or getting yeast infections, the caprylic acid in coconut oil can actually be beneficial. And you don't have to wait till and you want to have it in the bedroom. You don't want to say, wait a minute, honey, I have to go down in the kitchen and rumble around in the dark and look for the coconut oil. So you just have a little jar that you keep in the bedroom. And you can there's a lot of nice natural lubricants, but again, a lot of medications tend to be very drying, antihistamines. But I just say use coconut oil. Also, a probiotic supplement can be helpful. And one can even insert a probiotic like acidophilus vaginally. And that helps the body produce more copious lubrication. But, it is going to change as we get older. There's also an Ayurvedic herb called shatavari, also known as asparagus root. which is wonderful for women who've had hysterectomies or for women who need help with lubrication. But rather than it making us stress that we're not doing something that we did when we were in our 20s, like just have the coconut oil there. It works great. And there's all kinds of wonderful lubricants out there that are made with natural things like aloe vera. That's one of my favorite. Aloe cadabra, I think there's one. But buy one in the health food store. You don't need propylene glycol and simethicone and things that they use in waterproofing boots.
Yeah, I don't like those artificial ones at all. And I'm sensitive to those things. So I ended up finding coconut oil, and sometimes I'll add essential oils to it just to enhance the sensation. But it is really a great strategy, something to have in your house so that you are prepared for those situations. Do you have any suggestions to help men or women, it could be both, with their libido? Are there any good herbs that they can take?
Well, first of all, I wanted to say about food, and I think even before that, I want to say that, very often couples are tired at the end of the day. Like, you're exhausted. You've got kids, you've got work, you're worried about stuff, and then you go to bed and, there's a lot of stress. And so, finding ways to care for one another, whether it's, like, let's take a walk and hold hands, or let's do some partner yoga together, or let's make a healthy meal together. Let's go to bed earlier before we're exhausted and falling asleep in front of the TV in the living room. But if you wait till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock and think you're going to have great lovemaking then, and especially if you have to get up early, and the same thing in the morning, if you think you're going to have great sex when you have to be somewhere in an hour, forget that. You need to create some sacred time. And, I also like to say that foreplay starts all day long. It's not just in the bed. It's like, oh, that was so nice of you. Thank you for picking the kids up from school. Thank you for vacuuming. Thank you for doing the dishes. Thank you for massaging my shoulders. But massage can be a great way for couples to connect. And again, it doesn't mean you do like a whole, body massage. We might not have time for that, but something I love to do with my partner if we watch a movie at night, we trade hand massages, and it's one person, we switch nights, whose turn is it? But just by massaging your hand, you can help to de-stress the whole body. And sometimes that's like pretty orgasmic in itself. But foods that are going to help libido, according to the principles of Asian medicine, it's really important to strengthen the kidneys. And one good way to do that is to eat more black foods. So I think of things like wild rice, black beans, black quinoa, black olives, chia seeds, which are black. So eating more black foods, but not overdoing things like, coffee, which can also be very drying. Alcohol can be very drying. But I also think of nuts and seeds as being really good for libido. Things like pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds and hemp seed and, almonds and walnuts. So nuts and seeds, they are actually the reproductive part of the plant. And they can be very nourishing, because I think that if we're depleted and exhausted, somehow our bodies know making a baby would be crazy right now. And so that whole thing shuts down. Fertility and libido kind of go hand in hand, even though we probably don't want to have a child every 2 years. But I also want to say that being on birth control pills can also decrease a woman's libido. And I don't think that's talked about enough, because it changes your hormones. And, it might not make a big difference when you're in your 20s, but I think that don't be on the pill longer than you need to. And if you're only making love a few times a month, maybe you find another alternative method that isn't altering your hormones so much. But there's so many herbs. The word aphrodisiac comes from Aphrodite, goddess of the moon, goddess of love, goddess of sensuality and perfume. And so a lot of the culinary herbs are considered aphrodisiacs. Again, cinnamon, ginger, garlic, onions, cardamom, cloves, all of those are considered aphrodisiacs. But then I think of some that are even a little bit stronger, And again, you can go to the health food store and find formulas, might say libido for women or libido for men, but they're going to have herbs in them like maca. Maca is actually a plant in the Brassicaceae family. It's a relative of turnip and rutabaga. And maca, I think it tastes good. It tastes a little bit like butterscotch. I put it in smoothies or yogurt or, you know, applesauce. I've even added it to chocolate. But there's other herbs like epimedium, which is also known as horny goatweed, ginkgo biloba, ginseng. Some people might, especially men that have erectile dysfunction, might want to know about the herb yohimbe, but yohimbe is contraindicated if you have high blood pressure or on diabetes meds or on even using alcohol. So I do have a private practice and I consult with people all around the world. And, you know, another nice thing about the sexual herbal is, let's say you go to the health food store and you find a herbal formula and you want to know more about it. Like, well, what is epimedium? Are there any contraindications? Because there's many herbs that should not be used with high blood pressure or during pregnancy or maybe even during nursing. So it's good to be really well informed, because they can only say so much. And I always say, before you embark on taking an herb on a daily basis, you might want to read about it in a couple different places, different sources. So, you know, the whole idea that there are herbs that can help libido, you know, in the old days, they used to call them love potions, and things that were used in love potions, you know, hundreds of years ago, now have been proven to be bona fide aphrodisiacs, and they really do work.
Oh, they do. I have an aphrodisiac oil here. And you know, you can incorporate different things into your life so that
Okay.
So you can use essential oils or different herbs that you start to incorporate into your diet to help benefit both of the people in the couple. So I think it's great, everything that you've shared so far. Important to help the body by actually doing exercise and getting movement. I use a lot of dance and also use yoni eggs to teach my clients how to, you know, improve the muscles of the pelvic floor, increase lubrication, to help the body repair itself from maybe birthing a child or prepare yourself for birthing a child, those kinds of things. What kind of activities do you recommend from your book or from your experience?
Well, I certainly love things like sitting back to back and meditating together. I do love massage, couples yoga or partner yoga. You know, I actually think, you know, finding a partner who brings out the best in you, who has good communication skills, but, you know, even things like affection, like hugging heart to heart, making good eye contact, showing gratitude, being trustworthy, so that what comes out of your mouth is honest and true and trustworthy. I know that we wound our lovers with our words when we lack appreciation, when we snap at them, when we demean them. So it's kind of like, it's like an art that you cherish. Like, you have a partner and how can you just lay on the love? And it's kind of like if you were training, you know, a dog to be a good dog, you praise the good behavior, you know, and then the dog wants to do more good behavior. So in the sense, we're still like little children. When you praise the good behavior, you get more of that. But if you shame and blame, you're going to find that we get more wounded and guarded and resentful and, you know, avoiding. So it's really a beautiful thing. And, you know, sometimes we don't have the best role models if we had parents who fought a lot or who didn't stay together. And so sometimes we have to break a pattern and do what we can and realize that, you know, having a partner on the path is a precious gift, and it's worthy of cultivating that relationship and, you know, doing things to keep that love alive. I find that even things like, what you choose to do with your partner. It could be very depressing, like you go to a movie or watch a movie that's, murder and mayhem and depressing. So even like finding activities that elevate your consciousness and help to create more connection than despair. I mean, we've got enough of that going on. So I find that all of those techniques. Also, another technique is having a check-in every day. My partner and I, we like to synchronize our day planners. So I know when they're going to be gone, they know when I'm gone, so we can strategize and plan for quality time. Because if you just leave it up to being spontaneous in the moment, it might never happen. It's so easy for, kids and friends and other events to get in the way. So, again, Tantra could be things like making a meal together, trading massage, planting a garden together, planning an event or a dinner party together, decorating the home together, and, turning your bedroom to like a pleasure palace. I have a whole chapter in the Sexual Herbal about, ideas for making your room sensuous with, color and aroma and music and, sensuous things, and, being beautiful for each other, like finding out, what is your partner like? Do they like it when you wear lipstick or skirts or tight jeans or underwear or not underwear, so just really realizing like we all have our predilections and how we can be, pleasing and supportive to our partners. So I love the idea, in Tantra too, it's not so much about just the goal of orgasm. It's really being present in every moment so that every breath, every kiss, every touch, you're fully present in that moment. And if we just get our sexual education from movies where it's like tearing off your clothes in the elevator and never using contraception, I mean, that's kind of like fast food, fast sex, fast cars. Really, it is a cooperative effort between two people, and to keep it spicy and appreciative. So because life can be so busy, I just want to suggest that sometimes you pick a night with your partner. Maybe it's the full moon, maybe it's a change of seasons, maybe it's the new moon. You have clean sheets on the bed, you got the aromatherapy machine going, maybe with some sensuous oils like ylang ylang or jasmine or rose or sandalwood. And then, you've got the dim lights, the kids are in bed or somewhere else. And then you don't be so goal orientated. It's just like, we're going to bed early. We're going to see what happens. And it may start out with like, trading back massages, because we hold a lot of stress in our lower back. And if your body is aching, it's really hard to just jump for the genitals. Soaking in a bathtub together, soaking in a hot tub might be a nice way for couples to, get naked and get to know each other a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. And I think if you know that you are feeling pain or under a lot of stress, that maybe it's time to do a little bit of self-care for yourself to prepare yourself for this love making. So if you need to lay in the tub for a little while and do some meditation, it's a great opportunity for you to make that time for yourself, and then, plan your day accordingly so that you can have that experience with your partner. One of the things that I like to do is left eye to left eye. And I think that's a great bonding activity. Not many people have tried it, but it's a real deep connection with your partner when you just simply sit there breathing and looking into each other's eyes. And massages are always great. So shoulder massage, back massage, little caresses really help make that connection. So I like that you were talking about massaging the hands.
Yeah, it's something you can easily do while you're watching a movie, even if you have your pajamas on or your nightie on and all that.
Absolutely. And you can, rub their arm when you're sitting watching a movie, and pay attention to what you're watching on TV, because obviously if you're watching something that's grotesque and upsetting before bed, one, it's not going to get you in the mood for sex. Two, it's probably not going to get you in the mood for sleep. So really, I think it's important to pay attention. Where are we focusing our energy? What are we watching? Is it something that's nurturing to ourselves and to our partner, something that can bring us together or maybe make us laugh? Will be much better to use before bed than something that's kind of going to upset us.
I love that show Outlander. It's so romantic. Even though there's a couple violent episodes in it, it's awesome. And the love story in there is just beautiful.
I like there's this show, The New Girl. Her name is Jess on the show, and it's so cute. And to me, laughing really sets up the stage. And if there's good music on a show, or you can do a little dance, you know, it just sets you up in the right mood for something special. Before we close off, let people know where they can follow you or find you or grab your books.
You can find me at BrigitteMars.com. And I have a website there. I also have a YouTube station. I'm going to write my name right here. And that is my website. If you sign up for my newsletter, you can get all kinds of cool articles and YouTubes. I have lots of recipes and remedies. Again, the sexual herbal, but I've written 14 books. So they're all about health and, you know, being in harmony with nature. So the time is now. Thank you, Diane, so much for having me on your show. And I also do phone and Zoom consults with people all around the world. So you can find me on BrigitteMars.com.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. And anyone that's listening, it is spelled Brigitte, and then Mars is MARS.com. So you can go ahead and follow her and find her books. Make sure you tune in to the next few episodes of this Global Healing Series. We're going to have some interesting sessions on EFT, orgasmic meditation, and much more. So stay tuned. This is Diane Vic. Aloha.